Welcome to the MS-Perspektive podcast. Perspective with a K, as I'm German. I'm Nele Handwerker, MS patient, patient advocate and author. I'm bringing you interviews, inspiration and information about living with multiple sclerosis and show you ways how you can positively influence the disease and make the best out of your diagnosis. On ms-perspektive.com, you will find the show notes, 11 free tips as a PDF, and lots of other information. And now the show begins.
This podcast is supported by Mid-Mission, a project of the nonprofit Hertie Foundation.
Hello and welcome to episode number 13, How to Prevent Falls Caused by MS, an interview with Laurits Taul Madsen. Laurits is a PhD student at the Department of Public Health at the Aarhus University in Denmark. And now the interview begins. Hello, Laurits. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today and a warm welcome to Aarhus in Denmark.
Thank you, Nele. It's nice to be on the show and thank you for the invite.
Before we start with the questionnaire, I would like to ask you that you are introducing yourself a little bit so that the people know who is here on the show with me today.
Yes, of course. My name is Laurits. I'm from Denmark, a PhD student in Aarhus, working with Professor Ulrik Dalgas. I've studied sports science and was done in 2018 with my master's. And afterwards, I was hired as a scientific research assistant on the COGEX project, the cognition and exercise, big project on progressive MS and cognition. And in 2021, I started my PhD, which is on exercise. And we try to look at these booster sessions. So how can we keep people active over time? And when I'm not doing research, I live on the countryside with my wife and little daughter, Gertrude. And I like to play golf when there's time for that. But it's not a lot of time with both work and kid.
Yes, I'm absolutely. I can totally understand that. Yes, I have to go back to a group sport, but not fitting in right now. So I have to do it on my own. What was your personal motivation for your career choice?
Yeah, as I said, I studied sports science, and at least here in Denmark, people typically go either in the sports direction and look at how can we get the jumpers to jump 1 centimeter higher, or how we get the football player to sprint a little bit faster. And I didn't find that interesting. So I spoke to Ulrik and he kind of took me under his wings, and he had done a lot with MS before. And I found it quite interesting that with my background, I could do something, I say useful, and that sounds negative to the ones working with sports. But in my opinion, it's very useful and makes sense for me that we can work with things that really matters for people, and we can help people get a better everyday life.
Absolutely. Yes, becoming active. And it can be so hard depending on what your life is and what your issues are. Okay, let's come to the severity of falls caused by MS. How often do people with MS slip or fall? Do you have some numbers for us?
Yeah. There are actually studies showing that when they ask people how many times have you fallen in the last 3 or 6 months, over half of the people answered that they have fallen. So that's quite a high number, I think, actually, and was a bit surprising to me to read. But again, it depends on. There are some people falling a lot, and some people luckily not falling at all, but in a general term, it's approximately half of the people.
That's really a lot. And what are the effects of falls caused by MS on the health status and the quality of life?
Well, of course, it again depends on the fall. If you fall on grass, and you perhaps need to dust a little dirt off, and if you fall down the stairs, you can break your bones, and that will have serious effects on your everyday life. And it's also known that people with MS, that MS can affect in a way that you have a higher probability of getting osteoporosis So if you fall, there's a higher risk of breaking bones. And of course, breaking bones is a major health issue and can really be a setback in your everyday life, that you need to have your arm in a what do you call it?
Yes, that's slippery thing around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you need to have your leg need to be seated for a couple of months. Yeah. So it can have serious issues.
Yeah. And are there some numbers? How long does it take the fallen to recover when there is a severe fall with some things afterwards?
I'm not familiar with any specific numbers, but again, it would depend on both the fall and the person who's falling. If you are in a bad situation before the fall and you fall, then it will probably take longer to recover after the fall. On the other hand, if you're well functioning and in good shape and quite strong, then you would recover faster after the fall.
Yeah. I mean, of course, that's the same for the healthy people. If you're in a good shape and your muscles work, you can prevent yourself from bad falls.
But the important part about falling is the bones. So if you have strengthened your bones before and are in a good situation with your bones, then you're higher likely to recover good from a potential fall and perhaps not breaking anything.
Yeah, makes totally sense. What are the common neuromuscular impairments that contribute to falls in individuals with multiple sclerosis?
That's a good question, and we did a study a couple of months ago. And when we talk about neuromuscular impairments, the neuromuscular is the brain sending signals down to the muscle. So we both have the brain and the muscle working in a neuromuscular way. When we typically measure this, we measure the force. So if you have a person seated and you ask the person to push with his or her leg as strong as possible, then we typically just measure how strong is this person. But another way to measure it is to measure how quickly can the person produce this force. And that's where the brain is really important. And MS is a central nervous system, so the brain is impaired. So this is a really important part to look at, and that's what we call the rate of force development. So how quickly can a person produce force? And when you're about to fall, you're not interested in how strong you are. You're interested in how quickly can you produce enough force to counteract this balance perturbation and avoid the fall. So the most important things, the neuromuscular things, is the rate of force development. Mm-hmm. And we saw in our study that it was very, very high numbers when we looked at rate of force development compared to the muscle strength, that the rate of force development was markedly more important than the muscle strength.
Okay, and that's something that we are measuring with EMP, don't we, with electrophysical motoric?
No, it's actually it's actually quite a simple measure, and that's good because then we can easily go out and use it in the everyday world. We just look at if you imagine that you kick to a monitor that measures your strength, then we get a curve where the strength goes up over time, and then at some point after 2-3 seconds, you reach your maximum strength. But then we look at the first part of the curve, how quickly does the force go up? How rapid is this increase? And then if you're really impaired in the central nervous system, the curve will not be steep. It will go slow, slow, slow. Then you reach your force. And on the other hand, if the central nervous system is working quite okay, then you will get a steep curve and you'll quickly be able to produce force.
Okay, thanks for explaining.
Yeah, no worries.
How do changes in muscle strength and coordination impact balance and stability in individuals with MS?
Yeah, we see that muscle strength is good when we try to improve our balance. But it's very important to say that muscle strength is not the only thing improving balance and coordination. I think these are two very important and very, very complex aspects. When you talk about balance, you have so many things that interact. You have the vision, you have the strength and so on, the coordination, and it's very, very complex thing to improve. But muscle strength is one of the things that we, from our point of view, know how to improve. And we know that we can improve muscle strength and thereby improving balance from that side, and that can reduce the risk of falls. But when we talk about falls as well, it's important to remember that this neuromuscular thing is only a pixel of the picture. We have the balance and walking aids and potentially fatigue, and so that are many aspects affecting the
risk of falling.
Yeah, the risk of falling. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about the psychological factors such as anxiety and fear of falling?
Yeah, they're both known to be risk factors of falling. So if you have anxiety or if you have a fear of falling, then you're in high risk of falling. And what is it, the hen or the egg? We don't know about this, because of course, if you have fallen many times, then you have a higher fear of falling. And then the fear of falling will affect when you measure falls.
Yeah.
And we saw that in our study as well, that fear of falling was correlated with number of falls. But there are actually not a lot of studies done, at least with neuromuscular impairments as a focus on falls in MS. This is, to our knowledge, one of the first studies.
Okay. And you just mentioned fatigue. How does fatigue affect the neuromuscular function and contribute to the fall risk?
Yeah, that's the same, that we know that it's a well-known factor that increases the risk of falling. So if you are fatigued, then it increases the risk of falling. We actually didn't saw that in our study, but
okay.
But it is, in a general point of view, what we see. And fatigue is something that pops up every time we talk on any issue. Fatigue has some role to play. So that's a key factor that we get to understand how we can reduce the fatigue. I think that would reduce a lot of other
issues that we have with MS. MS symptoms, reduce them in severity. Absolutely. And sport is so important, but unfortunately so many people don't feel like sport when they are so much fatigued. That's an issue. But okay, now let's come to the part how we can prevent falling. Are there specific tests or measures like gait analysis that can help identify individuals with MS who are at higher risk of falling? I know in Dresden we do, for example, some jumping on a plate where you can measure, and we have a walking mat where you do the gait analysis. But of course, that's not common in the normal field for neurologists.
It sounds like a luxury.
Absolutely.
That's some of the tests that you can do. And there are tests for postural stability as well. If you have poor postural stability, you will have a higher risk of falling. And when we look at the neuromuscular measurements, this rate of force development could be a test that could be used for further, because it's quite easily done and you don't need a lot of equipment. And you can quickly see how is the result. And then you can flag the person. If the rate of force development is good, you go green. Mm-hmm. If there's something to work on, you go yellow. And if it's extremely poor, then you need to really focus on this neuromuscular function and improve that in order to decrease the risk of falls.
Okay. And can the improvements in neuromuscular function through targeted interventions or therapies help reduce the risk of falls for people with MS? I mean, of course they can. Have you numbers? That's probably more the question.
I would say I hope they can, because we actually don't know.
Okay, we don't know for sure.
No, it's not investigated yet.
Okay.
But I would be quite confident that it can be reduced when you need to improve this neuromuscular function, you have to do resistance training, and you have to do it with quite a lot of weight, or you have to do this, what we call power training, where you, for example, if you jump, that would be a power exercise, where you really work on producing force quickly. But we actually don't know yet, because it's not investigated in people with MS. Okay. But it will be in a short matter of time. I'm quite positive that we will set up a study in investigating this.
Very good. I mean, I'm doing totally fine. So I have the luxury of, for example, when I do sports in front of my computer, there are the burpees. But the burpees, as I do them quite often in the evening, my sports program, and we have neighbors below us. The burpees, I can do only a few burpees, but I'm getting better. And the analysis on the power plate at the MS Center here in Dresden told me that I improved.
That's good. So, that's my hate exercise, burpees. That's it's so tough.
Absolutely. No, I can't do many, but I know I have to work on them. They are good. What role does the awareness of body position play in neuromuscular function and fall risk?
It plays an important role, and it's a bit tricky, this body position, how to measure this, but it is important, obviously, that you are aware of your body, that you're not only strong, but you are aware of where you have your limbs and so in falls. But I don't have any specific numbers to give you on this, unfortunately. Would have been nice though.
Yeah, well, let's see. Maybe they will come in the future. Are there any early warning signs or symptoms that individuals with MS should be aware of as potential indicators of fall risk?
Well, for example, walking, but that can be difficult as a person with MS to note if you're walking worse than you did half a year ago. If it's just a small decrease, of course, if you start to your legs start to drop, or so you are aware, but the neurologist and the therapist need to observe early walking deficits. So that's things that can't be seen with the eye, but can be measured in. For example, we use this test called the 6-spot step test. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah, where you need to kick blocks. And there was a study done a couple of months ago, I think it came out, where they looked at newly diagnosed patients. So they were diagnosed within 2 years and compared to healthy individuals. And at the 6-spot step test, I think they performed around 40 or 45% worse than the healthy individuals.
Wow. Okay.
And when you saw them walking, they seemed to be walking fine. So that's a test that can pick up these deficits at an early point.
Okay, but can you maybe explain to the audience what the test is all about?
Yes, of course. You walk 5 meters, and you need to kick 5 wooden blocks out. So the first 2 trials you kick them out with your right feet, and the next 2 trials you kick them out with your left feet, and then you get a time from the 4 attempts.
Okay.
And if you don't have any walking impairments, it's typically around 5 seconds or so. And then of course it can go up to 20, 25 if you have a poor walking ability.
I think I would be good with both.
Yeah. That could be a way to look at early warning signs.
Yeah, that's
also
good.
Also the rate of force development could be a way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because it's such a simple measure that you can, and it's around 5 minutes or so, and then you can see if a person is in risk of fall.
Yeah, simple is key. I mean, especially when we are maybe out of the, let's say, Western European countries or Western world where the healthcare systems are way more tight on money. Yeah, it's absolutely key to have.
But also here in the Western, we are short of time.
Yeah, true.
At least in Denmark, I know that a lot of
same here in Germany.
Neurologists are short of time, and the therapists are short of time. So we need to figure out how we can quickly and efficient measure these things. So.
Absolutely. Can rehabilitation programs focus on neuromuscular function and balance provide long-term benefits for individuals with MS in terms of fall prevention?
Again, I hope and I think, but we actually don't know yet. But it is a theme that is coming up, and it's getting more attention in the world of rehabilitation, that we should focus on preventing falls. The study that we have done is with retrospective fall history. So we've asked them, how many times have you fallen within the last year? Mm-hmm. So the next thing is that we set up a rehabilitation program, and then we have some people do the rehabilitation program, some people living their normal life over a year. Mm-hmm. Then we see if the people in the rehabilitation program fall less than the people living their normal life.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's not investigated yet.
Yeah, so many things to do.
Yeah, exactly. But we know from other populations that, among others, the elderly, that rate of falls development and improving the rate of falls development is effective in terms of reducing the falls.
Makes totally sense. Are there specific neuromuscular exercises or training programs that can enhance balance and reduce falls?
Yeah, I think the part of enhancing the balance is, as I mentioned, complex, and it's not only about neuromuscular exercises. It's also about specific balance exercises. I think if you want to improve your balance, you should do balance exercises. If you want to improve your walking, you should do walking exercises. And if you want to improve your neuromuscular function, you could do neuromuscular exercises. And a side effect of improving your neuromuscular function is improving your balance. But as I mentioned, resistance training with heavy weight puts a lot of pressure on the central nervous system, and thereby improving the neuromuscular function.
Yeah. And to everybody out there who has kids, going to the playground and playing with your kid on the playground and maybe using the balance stuff there can help as well, I think. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Go with your kid on the playground and take a squat. Go up, lift them up on the playground, yeah.
Yeah, we have here a funny song we always do in the morning, and it's by lifting my daughter up, and I think my arm muscles already improved a bit. And yeah, you can do so many things with your kids, with little ones, or with your grandchildren, depending on what your situation is.
but again, and that depends on where you are. If you're in a bad shape, there's not a lot that needs to be done to improve this, actually. It can be everyday things such as taking the stairs instead of the elevator, if you're able to it, of course.
Yes. Or
doing a sit and standing from a chair 5 times every day, or 10 times every day. That's a start if you don't have the time or if you don't have the time.
Absolutely. Can people at risk do any lifestyle modifications or adaptations to improve their neuromuscular function and reduce fall risk?
I think the main lifestyle modification in order to improve their neuromuscular function is to stay active. If they are active, and if they're not active, start to be active in the way that is possible for each individual. We have only looked at people who are ambulatory. And a lot of the research done is with people who are ambulatory. And of course, if you're not able to walk that well, it can be difficult to be active. So that's, if you want to be active, it should be done in a safe way. And I think we should, in the research world, we should have a bit more focus on this patient group, because these are probably the persons that are falling the most when they're going to the bathroom, for example, or so. But it's also, from a research perspective, a difficult group to work with, because it's limited what you can do with the exercise programs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's way harder when you already have quite some issues with the MS symptoms and can't move that much, of course. It's way harder. Do you have any specific nutritional or dietary advice to support optimal neuromuscular function?
Eat your veggies. I don't have any, I'm not an expert on the nutritional part. So I would just recommend that you eat your greenies and perhaps low-fat meat. And yeah, I don't have any specific advice for this other than just staying regularly healthy.
Yeah.
I know that
lots of fibers, right? That's the greeny part.
Some people have success with some things, and other people have success with other things. But I'm not an expert on the nutritional.
No, healthy diet would be good.
Yeah,
not too much crap food.
No,
just a little for the fun. Are there any assistive devices or equipment that can aid individuals with MS in improving their neuromuscular function and avoiding falls?
I don't think I'm familiar with any specific assistive devices. You can have the stimulator on your legs. You're probably familiar with that. If you have a drop foot.
Yeah. That it's just below your knee or at your knee, more or less.
Yeah. That can help if you're in a situation with a drop foot. Otherwise, if you want to improve your neuromuscular function, it's hard work. It's there's no shortcut for that. Unfortunately,
yeah.
we don't have the pill yet. Perhaps it will come, but
yeah,
be a lot of.
You have to exercise. That's it.
Yeah, you have to.
How might the knowledge you have gained so far impact future interventions and treatments for fall prevention?
As this is the first study that have looked into the neuromuscular function and falls, and we have seen a large deficit in those falling compared to those not falling. We have the knowledge now that the people who fall have a lower neuromuscular function. So the next part is, okay, if we improve the neuromuscular function in this part of the population, would they then reduce the risk of falling? So it's always in research that we build upon the previous research. So now we have to take the next step and investigate this.
Yes. And then there will be new questions to be answered afterwards.
Exactly.
After you receive answers, it's not over. There are new questions, and that's good. What are the potential effects of disease-modifying therapies for MS on neuromuscular function and fall risk?
To my knowledge, I don't think that disease-modifying therapies have a concrete effect on neuromuscular function. Of course, it does in a way that it preserves the central nervous system in a better way, and thus making better opportunity to have a better neuromuscular function. But it's not directly targeted neuromuscular function. And we don't have any therapies for targeting neuromuscular function.
No, of course, it's just prevention, right?
Yeah, exactly. we have the vampire, which can help for the walking, but that's not about neuromuscular function.
And as far as I know, it helps for some people and it doesn't help for others.
Yeah, exactly. But if you are in a situation where your walking is decreased, then perhaps vampire can help and your walking can improve a little, and then reducing the risk of falls a little.
Okay. Now, there might be a few people who want to follow you on all your research you are doing in the future. So how and where can interested people follow your research activities?
I think if they follow on LinkedIn, we usually put most of our research up on LinkedIn. And if they want to dig even deeper, the ResearchGate is a good place. ResearchGate.net. Here you can find all your favorite experts and follow their latest research.
Great. Laurits, is there anything else you would like to share with the listeners?
Do exercise. No, I don't think I have any specific, but it's important to say that when we talk about, we have a tendency to talk our own theme or topic up and perhaps forget a bit about other things. Now we look at falls and neuromuscular function, but falls is one symptom. There are a lot of other symptoms, and neuromuscular function is only one part of the risks in falling. So there are a lot of other symptoms important for this as well. So we need to be open. I think that's my advice to other researchers and general people with MS, that there are a lot of symptoms and a lot of different ways to improve the different symptoms.
Absolutely.
But exercise for sure can a lot for many symptoms, such as fatigue and risk of falling and improving walking capacity and so.
Absolutely. It can make symptoms better and it can help with preventing disease progression, right? I mean,
exactly.
It's a very important part of lifestyle.
Important point as well to preserve function and be at a better place if something happens, an attack, for example.
Laurits, thank you very much. Thank you very much for all your research you have done so far with your colleagues. And I will follow the things you are doing on LinkedIn, and maybe you are coming at another point back to the podcast. And I
would be happy to.
Kind regards to Aarhus, beautiful Denmark.
Thank you.
And thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed the interview and learned something new. And as mentioned before, staying active is so important. Please try to do sports. Please try to move. Please try to stay active, as this really helps with your health, especially when you have MS, but even if you don't have MS. I mean, it's part of a healthy lifestyle. By the way, next time there will be an interview with Dr. Claudia Mark, who is a Senior Research Fellow at Melbourne School of Population and Global Health in Australia. And we will talk about the topic of smoking and MS. And please remember, I would love to hear from you, as this makes it more of a conversation. And maybe you send me some pictures where you listen to the podcast. And it would be very lovely if you tune in again. So, hear you soon. Thank you for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You may also be interested in the previously published episodes and posts, which you can find at ms-perspektive.com/podcast. Perspective with a K. You can also get a free PDF with 11 tips for your positive impact on MS at ms-perspektive.com/newsletter. If you'd like to get in touch, you can reach me at nele@ms-perspektive.com or on social media. Hear you next time.